All right, finding percent of a number. To find the percent of a number such as 60% of 2,000, you can use either of the following methods. Write the percent as a fraction, then multiply, or write the percent as a decimal, then multiply. Let's take a look at example number 1 on page 104. It says find 5% of 300 by writing the percent as a fraction. First things first, when you write this example down, I would like you to write 5% of 300. This will give you what the problem is without writing out all of those words. And it says to do this as a fraction. So how do I change 5% into a fraction? Well, keep in mind that the word percent means divide by 100. So it would actually be 5 divided by 100, and then the word of means to multiply times 300 over 1. Now, when you do that, we can start reducing. 100 and 300 reduce to 1 and 3. So what you end up with is 5 times 3, which is 15. So sometimes that's the easier way to go about these problems, is to write them as a fraction, reduce, and multiply. Example number 2 says find 25% of 180 by writing the percent as a decimal. So 25% of 180. First, we would change that percent to a decimal by taking our decimal point and moving it to the left 2 places to give us 25 hundredths. Then we would multiply that using the word of to change to multiplication, 180. We would pull out our handy dandy calculator, and 25 hundredths times 180 equals 45. So now we can go on to the letter problems A, B, C, and D using either one of the methods. But I'm just going to tell you, one method may work better than another when it comes to doing certain problems. We'll find out which methods are better. Let's go on to example number 3. It says percents are greater than 100%. Percents that are greater than 100% can be written as improper fractions, mixed numbers, or decimals greater than 1. So 150% is the same as saying 150 divided by 100, which is that fraction right there. They have reduced it to 3 over 2, which can be turned into a mixed number, 1.5, which is the same as the decimal 1.5. So all those different forms of the percent greater than 100. It says find 120% of 75 by writing the percent as a fraction. So we're going to do 120 divided by 100 times 75 over 1. We can start to simplify. 25 will go into 75 and 100. It goes into 25 3 times. It goes into 100 4 times. We're not done reducing because 12 is divisible by 4. 120 is divisible by 4. 4 goes into 12 3 times, so it will go into 120 30 times. So what I have is 30 times 3, which is 90. Notice that when you take a percent greater than 100 of a number, the answer you get will be bigger than the number you started with. So example 1, when we found 5% of 300, the answer we got was smaller. On example 2, when we found 25% of 180, the answer we got was smaller. But on this problem, where we were doing 120%, where the percent is greater than 100, we actually get a larger number than what we started with. Let's see if the same thing happens on example 4. Find 150% of 28. 150%, and it says write it as a percent as a decimal. We will do 1.5 because we would move our decimal point again back 2 places to the left, and we would take that times 28. When we pull out our handy dandy calculator and we multiply 1.5 times 28, you end up with 42 as your answer. Notice again, the percent's greater than 100, the number goes up. Use what we've just learned by making 150% of 20 or 160% of 35 by either changing those to fractions and multiplying or changing them to decimals and multiplying. Now you can go ahead and do letters E and F after the video by either doing a fraction or a decimal. Either way works. Like, take a look at the final example, example number 5. It says, refer to the graph. If 275 students took the survey, how many can be expected to have 3 televisions each in their houses? Well, we have 275 students, and we need to know what percent of those students have 3 televisions. And it says that 23% of the students have 3 televisions. So to find out how many students have that television, we would take 23% of 275. I think the best method here would be to turn 23 hundredths into a decimal. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to move our decimal point back 2 places. And so it would be 0.23 times 275. Now, up until this point, I've been doing all the problems mentally, but I think I'm going to actually pull out my handy dandy calculator and multiply 0.23 times 275. And, well, obviously I'm not going to get 0, even though that's what it gave me. I get 63.25. Well, we're looking for the number of students, so we can't have a 0.25 student. So the question is this going to be 63 or 64? Well, and since this is not a case we have to go up and 2 is less than 5, this would be about 63 students. Okay, that brings us up to the letter G letter problem. You can now go ahead and try those letter problems on your own, and we will come back at the end of class